Okay, my name is Angelika Hilbeck. I'm currently the acting chairperson of ENSSER, and I wish to extend the welcome on behalf of ENSSER on my part as well. In my professional life, I am a scientist, a researcher, and a teacher at the Swiss Federal Institute of Technology in Zurich, Switzerland. And I work there. I've been involved and participated in the field of environmental biosafety and risk assessment of genetically modified organisms since over 20 years, since 1990, in fact, from the US. And so this means I've been following what is going on since long before the first GM plants were actually commercialized and grown in the field. Since roughly 18 years, approaching 20 pretty quickly, I'm afraid, I have made active own contributions and conducted research and published in this field widely. So while ENSSER aims really, as my colleague Dr. Meyer said earlier, we really aim to broaden our basis. The whole debate started, and the idea for founding ENSSER was born with a group of people who were working on individual and different fields, but all related to biosafety issues in various countries in Europe. And we really found the need that it is very urgent and necessary that we organize ourselves for a number of reasons we will discuss during this conference as well. But as I said, the aim is really to expand into other fields and broaden the basis. That's why we have a conference here on multiple issues. However, we start now, and it is my job to lead now and contextualize for you and introduce the field of GM herbicide-tolerant plants and their production in South America. And there's been a number of reasons why we did this. So actually it was two events that triggered that to me and my colleagues. One, to have a symposium on this here in Spain. One event was at the MOP5 meeting in Nagoya. That is the members of the parties to the Cartagena Protocol on Biosafety that meets every 2 years to negotiate and implement the protocol. And we had a side event there in Nagoya with ENSSER, with a number of scientists. Among those was also Professor Penge from Argentina. And he presented the case of Argentina and the fallouts of Roundup-ready crop production, soybean production there. And after his talk, that was quite impressive, and the room was also, we had a decent number, a lot of people from the industries and the developers there. Industry person got up and said, well, you know, this is all pretty bad, so acknowledging and not disputing the facts that Professor Penge had been presenting, but he said that really hasn't to do anything with GMOs. This is just a number of really bad policy choices that were made by Argentina. And I found this intriguing because if you follow the field and you know exactly how these bad policy choices came about and who was instrumental in getting the Argentinian government to make those bad policy choices, I found this quite hypocritical and remarkable that this was a way that an industry person would frame it in a public meeting at such a high-level event. The other one was a hearing organized by the European Commission last fall in Brussels, where we also were invited, on socioeconomic dimensions on GMO cultivations. And to get the view from a producer country, the EU Commission had invited Mr. Martin Lemma from the Ministry of Agriculture, Livestock and Fisheries of Argentina to inform the Commission and the participants of that hearing about the socioeconomic and the on-the-ground experience of one of the prime producer countries in the world of herbicide-tolerant crops. And this meeting was filmed, and in short, what his take was, there's no adverse effects. Argentina has no GM problem, and it also has no herbicide problem or pesticide problem. It perhaps has a soybean problem. And he framed it or explained it in a way that ARR soybeans were apparently so successful that they basically fell victim to their own success, because now all the farmers in Argentina are growing soybeans only, and he was willing to admit that that might cause an adverse effect or some unwanted side effects in Argentina just by a crop being so dominant in the landscape, etc. However, he was framing this issue and what it was for Argentina so nicely that I felt I do something that I usually don't do, and I hope it works. I will leave the word to him and explain to you how he feels this has worked for Argentina. I must say that you have to be silent and listen carefully, and the picture has been taken really, I mean, the filmer didn't do a very good job. But listen to the content. It is 10 minutes, roughly 10 or 12 minutes. We will listen to him, and he makes reference to some of the speakers that will speak on our podium as well, and I think he does such a good job in introducing this field that I can't possibly do a better job. If it works. Doesn't. Oh no, come on. Server not found. Am I not connected? I was connected to the internet.
Du musst da hinten mal.
Ist das draußen?
Hast du noch
Hab ich? Ja, ja.
Dann nochmal oben, dann nochmal starten.
Das da oben.
Oben ran und nochmal.
Server not found. Did somebody disconnect the internet? No, huh?
There is no internet connection.
There is internet connection through the cable, no wireless.
You should ask Martin Lehmann. Why? You should definitely, right?
Yes.
I have a phone number here.
You think you can get him on the phone directly? No, I mean, he is... The reason why I want to show this too is because he's making references that I find need to be challenged, and I also find that, especially to Professor Carrasco, that he should have a chance in Europe to respond to. Okay, maybe you have... Since we have the opportunity to have Professor Carrasco with us, this would be a way for him. Of course, he wasn't at the meeting in Brussels, you know, he's not making that kind of statements with the people in the room. If not, we will skip. You haven't heard this, right? Professor Carrasco, have you heard his statements by now? No, huh?
No.
He makes reference to his work.
Sure.
Doesn't work.
No,
It worked perfectly this morning,
Yeah.
trust me. We tried it several times.
Can we ask what Professor Carrasco's funding stream is?
His funding from the government, I suppose. He will explain that later. He will speak about it.
No, it doesn't.
It doesn't work. Okay.
What's that?
Oh, is this guy? Sorry,
Lemma, Martin Lemma. Yeah, he's with the ministry. Yeah, he's government. He's the Argentina government. That's why it is significant. And he makes allegations or raises issues that need to be responded to. Okay, well then maybe we can show it sometime later. If not, I continue. I can give you my summary. So the strategy that was found was a complete denial of the events that Professor Carrasco and other people have been reporting about, which are quite serious problems, as you will hear. And also of the facts and the factual manifestation of it. Instead, the argument, after his presentation, Mr. Lemma was confronted from the audience with people who said they had been hearing otherwise, contrary statements to what he was presenting there in the room, and that, among other people, being witnesses of invited in European parliaments and gave presentations there. So also Professor Carrasco did that, but other people as well. Mr. Lemma wasn't acknowledging any of that and what his response would be if he's now confronted with it. And he wasn't rejecting it on any scientific grounds, but he was discrediting the person and the people who were making and presenting those reports and alluding to these effects, and making also quite ad hominem attacks, which many of us have been subjected to as well. This was just one that was public and could have been, I would have liked to show you. The strategy clearly also by him stating that he recognized, that was an original quote, by the way, I have up here, it's originally quoted, he says it is recognized as a problem that we have too much soybean, but denying everything else, and especially separating soybean from GM technology and from herbicide technology was an interesting turn in the debate that I found noteworthy that we need to take note of. It is dividing and separating risk issues into singular issues and components that are being dealt with in isolation from each other. That is a strategy we see applied not only to GMOs, but very much so to GMOs. And it means, in essence, trying to not allow that the dots are being connected, how things are working in conjunction, and that they work differently in conjunction than when looking at them in isolation. All right, so that things don't work like the sums of its parts, but as a function of each parts in a different or unknown, with unknown emergent properties you cannot estimate from looking at the parts only. So the developers and supporters claim, for example, in South America, for HR production, for Roundup ready crops, they claim the full credit for the benefits of this integrated package. And the integrated package that exists is consisting of GM soybean and the application of Roundup herbicides, leading to massive changes in the agricultural system and in the management of these crops, which enabled a huge more numbers of farmers in South America to grow soybean in areas where they might not have grown it without the technology. So it had a push, and it initiated production patterns and management systems that would in this way not have been manifest, not economic enough to do prior to the introduction of GM crops. However, so it is a system effect. No farmer would buy a herbicide-tolerant soybeans if they weren't applying herbicides, right? Because it just nobody does it. It doesn't make sense. However, when it comes to the fallouts of the integrated package of the technology, like the risks and so on, it is being rejected as an integrated result of this integrated package. It is divided, as I was alluding to an individual herbicide problem, and Mr. Lemmer presents this really nicely, this view, and the individual GM technology, and a separate agronomic issue. So all the adverse effects like the rampant and spreading weed resistance we have, and you will hear of that, I'm sure, the now increasing use of old toxic, more toxic herbicides in addition to glyphosate that was claimed to be totally benign, which is now being questioned as well, we will hear something to that, is necessary because due to the resistance in the weeds, glyphosate by itself doesn't work anymore in many areas. And this, of course, has triggered a lot of health effects of affected communities living in the areas where the soybean expansion took place. We will hear of that. And a number of other environmental problems have come along with the massive use, of course, repeated use since now 1996 or 1997, of herbicides, of course, killing a lot of non-target plants and associated fauna with it. So there's been a huge biodiversity effect that is not denied. All of that has nothing to do and is being rejected as part and parcel of the integrated package. So we find this an unacceptable double standard that we've been discussing and we've been voicing repeatedly at the fora. Therefore, the prime goal of this conference really is, certainly of this symposium, that we do want to connect the dots and we want to voice and make a case for that as technologies converge. And in the field of biotechnologies, you have nanotechnology, information technology, and biological engineering. You have an enormous converging going on there, where entire novel organisms are being designed by computer scientists and then constructed by physicists, for example, in synthetic biology in these related fields. So as these technologies converge in the production of novelties of various sorts, so must the risk assessment. We cannot afford and continue doing the isolating and separating type of assessments as we've been doing in the past, and the internalizing of the benefits but externalizing the emerging risks and safety issues to the society or into the production phase of these, commercial phase of these products. And we definitely would want to also screen and reveal the science in the denials and in the rejection arguments, and reveal if there is science or if there is no science. And certainly we reject and take a stand against attempts of discreditation of early warners, of people who have a different perspective on these affairs and these technologies, and present data. And we will hear a number of that data, of the presentation of the manifestations and of the facts as they present themselves in South America during the symposium. And we really find that this kind of discreditation, as Mr. Lemmer has been doing in his presentation, has no place anymore in the 21st century. Thank you very much. And